Now, this is something interesting, ladies and gentlemen, that I wanted to bring up. Because something happened in the Senate, right? Fire service have been scolded for refusing to take the knee for BLM, the race Marxist terrorist organization, right? Speaking of terrorists, I was going to cover it today, but I don't know whether you've seen that. I think it's 3 National Guard have been killed out in America at the moment, seemingly by an Afghan national. And the response of it has been quite telling, actually. I'll touch on this first because it shows the differences between 2 systems of government at the moment. One of them hell-bent on destroying their people and their culture. The other one is actually taking steps to resolve it. So the USCIS, which is the account of the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, has announced in the aftermath of this, effective immediately. So as when all of the stuff was going on, we know about, say, for example, this is the Afghan that killed Wayne Broadhurst, right? Or all of the other ethnic minorities that have been involved in the rape of Britain and child rape gangs and all of this stuff. Whereas our government has constantly labeled people talking about these things as racist, as Islamophobic, as all of this stuff, xenophobic, etc. The USCIS has announced that effective immediately, processing of all immigration requests relating to Afghan nationals is stopped indefinitely, pending further review of security and vetting protocols. The protection and safety of our homeland and the American people remains our singular focus and mission. So what they put up today, it was at 3:20 a.m. in the UK. I'm not sure what time it was out in America. Shows the response of 2 governments when an attack has been committed against them. You had generations of young British girls being sacrificed on this altar of multiculturalism, diversity, all of this stuff, right? And all of the political correctness and political persecution and state overreach, state tyranny that had to go along with that. And in this instance now, this has happened with the National Guard, right? And they say, nah, we're stopping everybody from coming in immediately. If only, that would be a start. It would by no means solve Britain's problems. But for me, it would be a start. Be like, or like Operation Stovewood. Let's take the Pakistanis, for example. Long time ago, when people were trying to talk about this and we knew exactly who the perpetrators were, right? Let's stop all immigration from those areas. In fact, let's stop all immigration from those areas and related areas, whether it be on ethnic similarity and also then religion. Oh, how many young girls could have been saved, but no. Our government is more focused on scolding fire services and public institutions, whatever, for refusing to cow down to woke ideologies. So South Wales Fire and Rescue made it so that people couldn't take the knee to Black Lives Matter, I believe it was, which I fully support, because I believe Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organisation. Hannah Blythyn, one of the members of the Senate, I believe she's Plaid Cymru, but I could be wrong on that, rather predictably called it repugnant and reprehensible, in addition to a bunch of other things. And then went on about they have brought disgrace to a service and tarnished it with high regard to which firefighters are rightly held. I'm going to show you some images and some video in a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, on why that might also not be the case. They're not specifically from South Wales Fire and Rescue Service, which it seems in this instance are doing something right. But we'll go with some other examples of where tarnishing things that are, supposedly held in high regard. A lot of places, a lot of fire services in particular, have done a great job of doing that themselves. But I'll bring this up on screen for you now in a moment, ladies and gentlemen. This is straight from the floor of the Senate, and we should be used to this right now, right? We should really, really be used to this by now. Video coming on screen right now.
Firefighters being forbidden to take the knee. All of these are, of course, repugnant and reprehensible. The report was published last week on the 3rd of January, and it is, in a word, damning. The headline finding is that discriminatory attitudes and behaviours exist at all levels, up to and including senior management. It'd be too simplistic to focus on the specific incidents identified in the report, shocking and horrific as they are. Misogynistic remarks, excuses banter, sexualized images of staff in uniform, homophobic Christmas decorations, or firefighters being forbidden to take the knee. All of these are, of course, repugnant and...
Can I just say, first off, before we carry on, can I just say, she went on about the, what was it, misogynistic remarks, accused as banter. Again, I spoke about this with the Sergeant Kate Evans when she got struck in the back by the, was it Palestine Action activist with a sledgehammer. Obviously, it's completely inexcusable. I feel sorry for her. She's recovering well, obviously. I just point out, though, and this is another thing where I can't remember the comedian that made this joke, but the reality is, if you had a single-sex workspace, like just with men, the way that it was for the majority of time before, you wouldn't need HR departments, and you wouldn't have this problem. I feel that's something that needs to be pointed out. I feel that does need to be pointed out. This could be solved very easily, but I don't think many people are ready for that kind of discussion.
As they are misogynistic remarks, excused as banter, sexualized images of staff in uniform, homophobic Christmas decorations, or firefighters being forbidden to take the knee. All of these are, of course, repugnant and reprehensible. Those responsible for them have brought disgrace to the service and tarnished the high regard in which firefighters are rightly held.
Disgrace. They brought disgrace to the service, ladies and gentlemen, by not taking the knee, by not showing subservience to woke religion, by not taking the knee and bowing, at the altar and grave of a serial, criminal, a drug addict, right? And the race Marxists that used it as an excuse to riot and commit acts of terror. That's what brings shame on the fire service. Not actually getting to the fire to solve it, right? And showing, aptitude, competence, all of these things. Do you want to know what I think brings more shame and tarnishes the reputation of these institutions more, ladies and gentlemen? What I think tarnishes the reputations of institutions like this even more are videos like this. This is from Avon. It's a little while ago. This is from Pride this year. Avon Fire and Rescue. Their promotional video showing that how they were going to be celebrating Pride. And it actually puts a lot of these things, the grievances that many people would have with regards to this, on display, in my opinion, as you will see in a moment. Just have a look at this, ladies and gentlemen, and try not to be sick.
Fire service.
Very important. Are you ready for Pride?
I'm ready for Pride. I'm in.
Hello?
Hello, it's Control. Are you ready for Pride?
I'll be there.
I'm going to put a pause there. Anybody else think that them getting ready for Pride has harmed their competence in some way? Obviously, I know it's a joke. But this is what people can expect from their fire service. He goes to use the pole, and he falls. I was saying, what happens if he breaks his leg? I know I'm taking this super seriously, ladies and gentlemen, but if we're talking about tarnishing the reputation of our, the high standards that firefighters are held to, when it comes to their blatant political activism, are we not allowed to, do these things with a little bit of extra scrutiny, to say the least? This is their virtue signaling, and in their want to virtue signal and fall over themselves to virtue signal, he's literally fallen down the pole. And surely that would then affect his capability to do his duties. Obviously, we know it's completely fake, he's completely fine, and it was a mannequin, but point still stands. I think these institutions are doing a fine job of tarnishing their own reputations.
I'm in.
Hello?
I'm in. I'm in.
I'm just going to say, with all this stuff, the house or whatever it is already burnt down. It's already burnt down. Absolute travesty. Absolute travesty. And obviously they're making sure they include the full flag, you know, to symbolize child mutilation and all of these things that the Pride movement has increasingly become more and more about. And in fact, it doesn't actually end there, ladies and gentlemen. We're supposedly holding our firefighters and whatever to high standards. Then explain this. So in fact, that you're a firefighter and is, you know, in his zeal to fall over himself quite literally to virtue signal, literally fell down the fucking pole. Right, if your gag was to be believed. Would we then ask about competence? Would we then be okay to ask about competence and stuff like that? But it doesn't end there, ladies and gentlemen. Pride being another big one. Pride being another big one that seems to bring no end of shame in these scenarios. And this one I wanted to bring up in particular because it's rather a lot more sinister. It's a lot more sinister, as we'll see in a moment. Check this out. This is from Nottinghamshire, I believe. This is another Pride event, and as you can see, this was last year's. But I'm going to skip through these images in a moment. There's one very, very troubling at the end, which I think really, really tarnishes the reputations of these, you know, supposed, you know, elite firefighting units or whatever. Not to mention how embarrassing it is, for a start. Not to mention I thought these services were not meant to be political in any way, and they literally got the pride flag with the additional elements, you know, that are synonymous with the pride flags you see inside of classrooms, right, to symbolize child mutilation and all this stuff. They literally brought a young child here on top of this lady's shoulders, presumably a lady anyway, who is quite clearly autistic. And in fact, I believe that would I be correct in saying that on the ear defenders here, the A would actually be designed to convey to somebody looking on that these are not just ear defenders worn for no reason. It's because the child is seemingly autistic. This doesn't harm the reputation and tarnish the reputation of our supposed elite firefighting units or elite firefighting forces or whatever. I think it does. So when are our firefighters supposed to be about, you know, child mutilation and kids born in the wrong bodies, and especially these young, vulnerable children, like this child here seemingly with autism, who's been brought to this, you know, march seemingly by a parent or carer or whatever it may be. Obviously, he's not going to know what he's there for. He cannot know what he's participating in, and he's also being used in political propaganda. Which, if many of these activists had their way, the minute he maybe shows a fascination with something that would be deemed as something stereotypical female or you know girly or whatever, they want to inject him with hormones, and they want to start calling him, instead of maybe his name is Bradley, they want to start calling him Brianna or something like that, and do irreparable damage to the one body and the one life that he has been given. But not only is he just a child normally, when they obviously don't know what they're getting into anyway because they're children, this child seemingly would have another disadvantage. And I don't say that to mock. I don't say that with any, you know, hatred or anything like that, or to seem insensitive. It's just the reality of the situation. Now you see it. You see that the data kind of seems to bear this out as well. One of the biggest victims of the trans cult when it comes to children are autistic children, because they have that additional element of confusion due to their condition. And here they are being used as propaganda, political propaganda, outright shameless political propaganda by our supposed, you know, high standards fire services, this one being Nottinghamshire. So good on the South Wales Fire Service for actually seeming to stand up and exercise a little bit of a backbone with regards to these things, and actually say, no, we're not going to go along with your woke shit. And yeah, we're not going to support anti-British, anti-Western, anti-freedom, anti-white especially, race Marxist terrorist organizations. Well done, South Wales Police. If you enjoyed that clip, then make sure to go on over to the Voice of the Valleys X page at VOT_Valleys on X. We're also on Instagram at Voice of the Valleys. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Godspeed.